There's a quiet truth about retirement that most no one talks about. Often, and if you have a pension off, it'll fare more than you conceive. The truth is, while everyone else is scrambling trying to figure out how to turn a pile of savings into a lifetime of income, you already have something most citizenry don't, because you have a foundation, you have certainty, you have a pension off. Besides, and that puts you in a rare category, one, that fewer than 20% of workers today can claim. In fact, but here's the part that power surprise you. Having a pension off does not make retirement planning easier. In many shipway, it makes it more nuanced, more layered, more strategic, because the advice you hear everywhere on YouTube, from friends, evening from some financial professionals, is designed for people who don't have what you have. They are building from scratch. You're building on top of something productive, and that alteration everything. So today I want to walking you through Quartet Critical Shift, 4 slipway of thought that can transform how you approach retirement when you have a pension. Honestly, not just to aid you get by, but to help you retire with lucidity, confidence, and control. 1. The hidden risk no one warns you about. Let us start with something uncomfortable because this, is where many well-intentioned plans softly autumn apart. Rising prices. Also, not the headline you see on the news, not the figure economists debate, but the slow, persistent erosion of your purchase powerfulness, the kind you barely notice until one day things just feel tighter. Here's the truth most citizenry miss. Many pensions aren't built to grow with rising prices. Paraphrase, some have adjustments, some have partial protective cover, but many don't. And even when they do, it's often not adequate to keep stride with real-world costs. Indeed, so let's make this real. No doubt, imagine you're receiving $50,000 a 12-month from your pension off. That sounds solid, stable, reassuring. But fast forward 20 age. That same $50,000 now has the purchase powerfulness of about $30,000 if rising prices averages just 3% annually. Same number, completely different world. Paraphrase, at the end of the day, and this is where the emotional side of retirement planning comes in, because this isn't just about numbers. This is about lifestyle. Paraphrase, surprisingly, it's about whether you can continue the living you worked decades to build. It's about whether comfy slowly turns into constrained. Besides, and here's the deeper insight, notably pensions are improbably efficient early in retirement. They create stableness. They cut down stress. In fact, they protect you from marketplace swings. But overclip, if rising prices is unaccounted for, that strength can softly weaken. So what do? Think about it this way. Actually, you do not abandon the pension. You balance it. You build around it. The truth is, you generate extra sources of income that turn over time. Importantly, investments, delayed mixer security, strategical withdrawal, anything that helps your hereafter income keep pace with rising cost. Here's why this matters. Because retirement is not just about having income, it's about preserving the value of that income. Figure 2, the tax trap most pension off holders walk into. Definitely. Now let's talking about something that catches even the most prepared retirees off guard. Taxes. For age, mayhap decades, you've probably heard the same thought repeated over and over. Truth is, you'll be in a lower tax angle bracket in retirement. It sounds comforting. It tone logical. And for many people, it's altogether wrong. Surprisingly, especially if you have a pension. Think about it. In retirement, your income doesn't disappear. It changes form. Basically, you may have pension income, Social Security, required withdrawals from retirement accounts. And here's the key. Those streams do not replace each other. What we're seeing is they deal. Now here's where it gets good, and when they stack, something interesting go on. Your taxable income can actually be higher than it was during your working old age. Of course, now bet on another reality. Honestly, tax rate today, historically speaking, are relatively low, which agency there's a real number possibility that over the next 10, 20, or 30 years, tax rates could rise. So now you're veneer a double pressure. The truth is, of course, higher income in retirement, potentially higher tax rate. And if you do not plan for it, you could end up giving away far more of your money than you ever expected. But here's where strategy becomes powerfulness. This is where something called a Roth conversion enters the conversation. Now, do not let the term intimidate you. At its core, it's simpleton. To be honest, you return money from a tax-deferred account like a traditional IRA or 401k and move it into a Roth story. You pay taxes now, but from that point forward, that money grows tax-free. And more importantly, you control when actually and how much tax you pay. Because here's what much happens, And for pension-off holders, this can be transformational. On top of that, early in retirement, your pension off gives you enough income to live on. The truth is, sometimes, so you delay withdrawal from your retirement history. So what does this mean? Those account grow. They compound. They expand. Clearly, and then late, you're required to take distributions, bigger distribution, which means higher taxes, which means less control. But with strategical Roth conversions, you shift that timeline. You choose to pay tax, actually, when rates are let down. You reduce future postulate withdrawals. Paraphrase, you create a pool of tax-free income that give you flexibility later in life. You create a pool of tax-free income that give you flexibility later in life. It's not about avoiding taxes. It's about managing them intentionally, intelligently, proactively. On top of that, because in retirement, control is not just about income. At the end of the day, notably, it's about what you keep. The decision that shapes your partner's futurity. Paraphrase. Now let's talk about something deep personal, something that goes beyond spreadsheets and projections, the survivor welfare. Paraphrase. If you're married or have a long-term partner, this may be one of the most significant financial decisions you ever brand. Because it answers a simpleton but profound inquiry. What happens to your income when you're no longer here? Most pension off give you options. Besides, you can choose a higher monthly payment for yourself or more or less a reduced defrayal that continues for your spouse after you pass. On the surface, it feels ilk a trade-off, and it is, but it's also more than that. It's a decision about protection, about peace of mind. Let's break it down differently. Notably, if choosing a survivor benefit reduces your pension off by, say, $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. Honestly, over 30L, that's $180,000. So the real number question is that the topper way to protect your partner? Often, or could that same amount placed differently create a strong, more flexible safety net? Without question, there's no one-size-fits-all answer here because every couple is different. Every position is unique. Truth is, but here are the questions that affair. Would your cooperator struggle financially without your pension? Do you have other assets that could support them? How comfortable are you with market-based solutions versus guaranteed income? What are the tax implications of each option? And there's one more layer that oftentimes gets overlooked: sequence of tax return peril. If you pick out the higher pension off sum, you have more guarantee income early in retirement, which way you are less dependent on your investing, which means if the marketplace drops early on, you're not hailed to sell at the worst possible clip. Here's the deal: you have ventilation room, and that breathing way can make a major divergence over clip. Now, to be clear, this isn't an argument against subsistor benefits. Actually, in many cases, they absolutely make sense. In fact, for a majority of couples, they're the right choice. But the key is this: don't brand this conclusion in isolation. Make it in setting. On top of that, as portion of a larger coordinated program, shuffle it, because this isn't just about income. Now, here's where it gets good. It's about ensuring that the person you love is protected no matter what pass off. Obviously, why your investing scheme shouldn't look ilk everyone else's. The reality is, there's a lull, more or less, mistake I see over and over again. Smart people, responsible savers, thoughtful planners, and yet they follow a retirement investing scheme that was never project for them. Because here's what go on. You see general advice: shift to a 60-40 portfolio, reduce hazard as you get older, focus on income. What we're seeing is, and those pretty much ideas, they're not wrong. They're just incomplete. So what does this mean? The thing is, because they're built for citizenry who are relying almost completely on their investment portfolio to fund retirement, that's not you. You have something powerful work in the background. Let me put it this way: a pension, a steady, predictable stream of income that arrives month after month, regardless of what the market is doing. Surprisingly, in that alteration, the role your investment need to play completely. To be honest, let me say that again because this is where the shift pass off. No doubt, when you have guaranteed income, your investment don't need to do the same job as everyone else's. They don't have to carry the extensive weight. They don't have to generate immediate income. Here's why this matters: because your pension off is already doing that. They don't have to protect you from every short-term downturn. Actually, and when you truly understand that, you unlock something incredibly valuable: flexibility. You can yield to believe long-term. You can afford to stay invested. No doubt you can afford to pursue ontogeny. Now let us talk about one of the biggest fears in retirement planning: sequence of return risk. The reality is, it sounds technical, but it's really very human. It's the fear of retiring and then immediately facing a marketplace downswing. Because if you're forced to withdraw from your investment while they're down, you're locking in losses, and that can permanently damage your portfolio. But here's the departure. Here's the deal. If you have a pension, I intend, you're not rely entirely on your investments for income. Think about it this way also, so if the market drops at 67, you don't have to panic. You don't have to sell. You can pause. You can wait. Interestingly, you can let your investment recover. Paraphrase. And that single advantage can make an enormous difference over time. So instead of defaulting to a conservative income-focused portfolio, you may have the opportunity to lean more toward growing. Not recklessly, not impulsively, but intentionally, thoughtfully, strategically. For some, that power mean moving from a traditional 60-40 allocation to something more growth-oriented, maybe 70-30, 80-20. Additionally, even higher depending on your situation. Because your pension off is already acting as the stable portion of your plan, it's doing what bonds typically do for others, which means your investment portfolio can focus on something diverse. Truth is, protecting your future purchasing power, growing over clip, outpacing inflation. Now let's be clear about something. Often this isn't about chasing trends. Paraphrase, notably, this isn't about putting everything into a ACE stock or betting on the next big thing. Think about it this way, it's about alignment. Here's the deal, it's about making sure your investing strategy chew over your realness, not someone else's. On top of that, because when your strategy matches your construction, everything starts to piece of work together, bringing it all together. The powerfulness of coordination. The thing is, if there's one idea I lack you to walk away with, it's this. Retirement success is not about having the perfect piece. It's about how all the pieces fit together. Your pension, your social protection, your investments, your tax scheme, your withdrawal plan. Individually, each one matters. But together, that's where the real number powerfulness lives. And here's the challenge. Most citizenry don't program this way. They brand decision in isolation. They take investments without considering taxes. Paraphrase, they claim societal protection without thinking about their pension off. They select survivor benefits without looking at the full picture. And tardily, softly, those disconnected decisions begin to cost them. Not in obvious ways, but in subtle compounding ones. Clearly, a small more tax here, a little less growth there, a missed chance somewhere else, until one day they realize they left a significant amount of money on the table. And the truth is, it didn't have to be that way. Interestingly, because when you coordinate your program, really, when you step back and see the whole image, something shifts. Conclusions become clearer, trade-offs become more designed, opportunities become visible, and your plan becomes not just functional, but optimized. A simple, successful action plan. The reality is, so let's brand this practical. If you have a pension, here are 5 steps you can take starting now to put yourself in a stronger position. 1. Understand your pension off deeply. Don't assume. Don't guess. Plus, know whether your pension includes inflation protection. In fact, and if it doesn't, acknowledge that realness and plan for it because clarity is the foundation of every good conclusion. Here's the deal. 2. Build in rising prices strategy. Indeed, if your pension off won't turn with inflation, something else needs to. Definitely, that might intend investing more for growth, delaying societal protection, creating additional income streams because your hereafter lifestyle depends on more than today's numbers. On top of that, 3, explore Roth transition strategically, not emotionally, not impetuously, but thoughtfully. Model it out. Run the numbers. Paraphrase, comprehend how it impacts your tax bracket, your Medicare premiums, your Social Security taxation. Because, perform right, this one scheme can save you a big amount over your lifespan. What's more, quadrant evaluate subsistor benefits in context. So what does this mean? Really, don't just ask, what's the monthly deviation? We ask what's the long-term price? What alternatives exist? What we're seeing is, generally, what provides the best protection for my partner. And notably, because this isn't just a fiscal decision, it's a life conclusion. Here's why this matters. Notably, cinque, align your investments with your realness. Also, don't copy somebody else's portfolio. Think about it this way. Do actually default to generic advice. Generate a scheme that reflects your pension off, your peril tolerance, your long-term goals. Indeed, because when your investments are aligned with your income structure, you profit confidence. What we're seeing is you gain flexibleness. You gain control. Really, let us end with something important. Really, if you have a pension off, it's easy to think of it as luck. Also, and in some ways it is. But more than that, it's a responsibility because you've been given something useful, something rare, something that, if used wisely, can create extraordinary stability and chance in your retirement. But if misunderstood, if underutilized, if taken for granted, it can quietly fall short of its potential. And that's not what you lack. Also, you don't lack to just get by. Interestingly, you don't want to leave things to chance. You want to be intentional. You want to be strategic. Because retirement is not just about numbers. You want to brand decisions today that your hereafter self and your family will thank you for. It is about freedom. It's about peace of psyche. It's about waking up and knowing you've done the work. Paraphrase, you've made the right choices and you're ready for what comes in coming.